Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Sound Guy Chronicles YouTube channel. I'm thankful that you guys would see it fit to tune in, and it's just a humbling experience just to know that people would want to listen to what I have to say. So I'm grateful for you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And again, thanks. But on today's episode, I do want to continue our dynamic process series. I believe it was episode 10 where we talked about compression. And we never got back to that. So I just want to continue to talk about the dynamic processors. Yeah, so today we're going to deal with gates. Gates, as we know them, are something that open and close. They keep things in and they keep certain things out, it's a barrier. And that same definition applies to noise gates, the dynamic process. So for noise gates, they're a member of the dynamic processor family, and they're designed to reduce the gain of a signal below a certain point. They make quiet passages even quieter, and they can help to isolate drum hits or any instruments in recorded signals that are showered in noise bleed. So gates they're typically used for removing bleed on drums, like taming guitars, that have like a ridiculous amount of gain on them, or also like they remove that ambient noise from vocal recordings, and they make the audio more crisp. Gates, they work somewhat similar to compressors, but the threshold is actually opposite. You know how with a compressor the threshold is at the top of the audio, compressing the highs, but the gates the gates threshold, any signal that's louder than the threshold is what is captured, but anything below that threshold is reduced. The volume is reduced. Okay, next we need to understand the controls. What, why, and how we do the controlling. Somebody could look at gates at its surface and pretty much just think, oh, they open and close, but it's a little bit more than that. In order to master the level of the audio, there has to be some fine tuning. And like we said before, the first one is the threshold. We already went up over those, but yeah, the threshold controls the decibel level of which the signal passes through. The second one is the floor. The floor sets how far a gate signal goes when it's closed. If you have the noise floor set as low as it goes, then the signal will be muted. And if you set the signal to be, say, like 12 dB or so, it will be reduced by 12 decibels. The attack is the third one, and it controls how quickly the gate is open once the signal exceeds the threshold. And for my keyboard players, these set of controls, they remind me of the ADSR on a keyboard. So that one is the attack. The next one is hold. I would say that's the equivalent of a sustain, so pretty much how long the gate stays open after the signal exceeds the threshold. And the next one is the release. And the release controls how quickly the gate closes after the signal is done falling. So essentially it does what the attack does on the back end of the signal. The last control that we have is the side chain. So some noise gates, they include an internal side chain option, and I will let you guys see a little bit later what that is, but that allows the gate to trigger only like a portion of the frequency spectrum, so that better allows a gate to get rid of certain frequencies You may not want to get rid of the entire sound. You may not want it all to be entirely muted, but the sidechain allows for you to manipulate it better. So we're going to go through a couple steps of what to do to set a gate in your mix. So you want to start first with the threshold turned all the way up, which is 0 decibels, and then slowly reduce it until you begin to hear the signals pass through the gate. Yeah. So say you're doing like a drum signal, you want to set the threshold so that even the quietest drum hits open in the gate. But then there's no drum bleed. So every instrument would be different, but really just focus on the triggering of the gate and not on the release. The second one would be to set the gate's internal sidechain if you do have a sidechain in it, or if you have an external one. So that's pretty much just a fine tune, as we said before, to fine tune the performance of the gate. And the goal is just to have the focus on the desired signal, the desired part of the signal that you want to gate. The third one would be to adjust the settings. So that would be the attack, hold, release, and all of that. Yeah. So you turn the attack up, and then you turn it down gradually to see where the perfect balance between softness and attack is. And so if you next step would be that if you need space in the time, like if you need to space out the time between the gate's opening and its release, then all you have to do is just increase the hold time a little bit, or maybe you could just like decrease like the separate like threshold. So you just really have to find what works for you. Use your ears. I always say your ears are your best friend. So ideally you want to do the attack before you do the release. But yeah. So the release, actually, it can depend on many things, like the decay of the instrument, it could just depend on the tempo, the bleed, how much bleed you have, the room tone, like that reverb. Yeah, so I wish I could just give a cookie cutter answer, but there are so many different variables, so you really do just have to use your ears. You just want to make it so it sounds natural. You don't want it to sound robotic or synthetic, unless that's the sound that you're going for. Again, I would like to thank you for tuning in to the Sound Guy Chronicles. This is honestly a privilege, and also, we're on this journey together, so I'm learning as you're learning, and I want to be able to better explain things in a very simple way so that the most inexperienced of sound techs can understand what I'm saying, So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and if you have any questions, you know where to hit me up. You can hit me up on YouTube. You can direct message me the Sound Guy Chronicles on Instagram. And like I always say, we're here to help each other. And if you're going to run sound, you've got to make it count.